Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is in polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? Thank you all for being here. I'm excited. There's a lot of people in the chat saying this is like the first time they've caught a stream or the second time. Welcome to you guys. I've realized there's been a few people saying that recently, and I've realized it's probably because of the fact that we have daylight savings here in Australia. So our clocks just went forward an hour, I think. And I didn't take into account that nobody else does that, pretty much, just us. And I've just been scheduling shows as normal, thinking everything's normal, but apparently we're going live an hour earlier than normal. So welcome to all of the new people that this time slot has collected. I'm glad you're here. Charlie Stewart is celebrating 1 month as a member, saying, I've finally managed to catch my second live stream. Loving the content. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Charlie, and welcome. And Kathleen threw in $5 before the stream even began. What a legend. Best community on YouTube. Now, we have a really interesting show tonight. We're getting into Jason Sands making some crazy, like really crazy comments in an X space. So he's essentially saying that all of disclosure, everything that's unfolding, the 7-course meal, as our friend Jason Samosa likes to say, the slow dissemination of information that began in 2017 is leading to essentially like a revelation about God, and like it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual phenomenon, but also the fact that there is other forces here manipulating us. And he basically just rips the lid off the whole thing. So we have the full like 7.5 minute clip of that we're going to get into. We've also got a couple of clips from Anna Paulina Luna. She was on the Danny Jones podcast today talking about a few interesting things. We're mainly going to look at the NHI, religious related stuff because it kind of fits in with the show today. And we've also got a clip from Courtney Brown. Yeah, we haven't looked at Courtney Brown in a while. And in fact, it's actually an old clip, but I think it's relevant into what we're going to be speaking about today. So I'm excited. Let's, of course, do our rite of passage. Say hello to the most beautiful, shiny girl in the world. And let's give her a little snacky because she's just the best. There we go. Say hello. What a good girl. What a good girl. Stevie with $8 says, with WA not doing daylight savings, your stream now always starts before the kids go to bed. I'll catch you later. Well, Stevie, it's not forever. It's not forever. I'm hoping as we sort of turn into the new year, I'm really aiming to do my best to make a set schedule. Now, I really struggle with set schedules, but I really do want to get something in place, and I think we will. I'm just kind of feeling out what's going to work best. Yes, Anna, and you reminded me, I wish I clipped it. I should have clipped it for the show, but guys, I will say within the first 5 minutes of Anna Paulina Luna on the Danny Jones podcast, she literally says people need to go outside and touch some grass. Are we making waves? Is Anna Paulina Luna watching Polarity? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's coincidence 12,017, or maybe Anna Paulina Luna is watching a bit of Polarity. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, let's get into the show. First clip is from her, and then we're going to get into the Jason Sands stuff because that is going to be the meat of today's show. But I think this is a nice way to kick it off. Murad says, when are you inviting her as a guest? Well, look, I've already invited her out to lunch and she still hasn't replied to that. So I'm taking it she doesn't want to come on the show either. Unfortunate.
Diagram of the cosmic egg. Go to the right. What does it say?
Is this supposed to be a representation of our universe?
I think it's like, what it's doing
in a parallel universe.
It's saying that the brain and the universe are like one thing. Like it's like we are the unit. Like it's like the whole point of it is like when we die, our consciousness molds into one universal consciousness.
We're created in God's image.
Well, here's the thing: there was one page that was redacted until Robert Monroe let it out, and the whole reason they redacted it is because it was like all about who God is.
So confirming God is real.
I don't know exactly. I haven't read. I don't think I've read it, but
So like the reason why they're obviously talking about these leaked CIA documents, right? That I'm sure a lot of us have probably seen. But the reason why I left this little bit in is because Anna, keeps slipping in little comments like you've probably already heard her say. We're 30 seconds in and she keeps going like, oh, because God is real. You know what I mean? She just keeps like, it's very clear the messaging that is coming from this process.
Something about God, and that for some reason the CIA was like really interested in this stuff and like throwing money at it.
I mean, they threw money at trying to find the Ark of the Covenant.
About God?
I don't know. I think a lot of people, it's a lot easier to control people if you convince them that God's not real.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Imagine if people realized there was accountability after this life. How much society would change.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be easier to control?
I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Yep. I've seen this.
So the left hemisphere is like...
So the way that the brain dissects into interact with the universe.
Right. Yeah, this is just, it's trippy stuff. And if you watch videos of this guy, Itzhak Bentov, talk about consciousness, it's bizarre.
I think it's interesting, though, because people, I think there's a very new age perspective on consciousness that tries to remove God from the theory and topic. And then you have a lot of these people. It's like kind of weird. In the UAP space, we meet a lot of interesting people.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, but
the religious.
Danny goes, yeah, I bet. And he's probably right, to be honest. But someone was saying in the chat that he hasn't even watched the UAP hearing, which is true. He kind of outs himself in this show that he hasn't seen the UAP hearing. Now, you know, he's probably a busy guy, but he does also claim to be heavily invested in the UFO topic. So the math ain't mathin'. You know what I'm saying?
Stuff and the UAP stuff is like melding.
But the thing is that the failure to recognize that God is real and that to cut God out of the equation, I think, you know, like I'm a Christian through and through. So I don't look at it from that type of perspective, because I think that when you're opening yourself up to these energies, how the hell do you know what kind of energy you're opening yourself up to?
Right.
So I think.
And this was the biggest thing that people say about CE5. And I kind of agree with it in a way, to be honest, like with this orb summoning epidemic, whatever it is. Like we are, like if this is something that is higher than us, that is, you know, can connect to our consciousness, like people say, it is kind of wild that everyone's just throwing themselves at it, being like, see what happens. Might get possessed, might not. Roll the dice.
That's a very interesting thing, especially if like you're newer in your spiritual walk and you're kind of looking towards some of this stuff. It can be dangerous, but definitely interesting the CIA has looked into it. I think if you have time, go to the CIA reading room and you will find some most interesting reading material on Friday nights on that website.
Well, the crazy thing about the UFO
actually love
stuff,
it. Yeah, I love
the crazy thing about the UFO stuff is there's so many parallels in ancient texts and the Bible and accounts of these UFOs, like before people
I would say
could do anything
technologies.
except for like right and right.
Interesting little comment from Anna there. She like tried to correct him by saying, I would call it ancient technology.
Write down accounts of things like there's accounts of like of objects coming out of the ocean in like, I think Richard Dolan was explaining to us, this was like in 1700s maybe, where just like these glowing orbs the size of football fields would come out of the ocean, where these like sailors on this ship would see it and then they would like write the account and like find it later and like find drawings of it. And this is like, this goes back into antiquity. So the question is like, you know, were the angels UFOs or are the UFOs angels? What came first? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I was just listening. I wish I would have brought in the paper, but you know, Plato talks about the legend of Atlantis. Plato was a smart guy. People read that and forget that the Atlantean civilization was a very advanced technological civilization. Where did they get that tech from? And then if you read the Book of Enoch, which I would encourage everyone to read, a lot of people are like, oh, that's fake, you know, shouldn't have been in the Bible. Well, actually, it was removed from the Bible because people wanted to gatekeep that information. It's still in the Ethiopian Orthodox text, which I would argue is the least watered down version of the Bible that you will get, because it has been in its original form since basically the beginning. And a lot of people don't know about the Ethiopian Orthodox Church or the fact that can trace their lineage all the way back to the ancient Israelites. Okay. But why would they specifically remove this text? And it does talk about fallen angels and information, knowledge, all that was handed over to mankind. All I'm dealing though with in my task force is on the facts. And so the facts are there's stuff that we can't explain, and there's information that's being hidden from the American people in Congress regarding that topic. So usually if someone's hiding something, you should probably ask why. And so the information that we released from our last hearing, actually, Representative Burleson released it. It was a piece of footage that was dead dropped to him. And you can look at that, and that's pretty wild. You have a Hellfire missile hit one of these things, and it deflects it. That's not a balloon. That's not a balloon.
You hear that, Chris Lato? It's not a balloon. Look, I don't know if it's a balloon or not, but I do that. Like the fact that she is in this full interview, she talks about how, you know, she bases a lot of the things, like a lot of her opinions and the way she feels about this topic off of the things that she has seen, and also the things that she has seen that she can't talk about. But it makes me wonder that when she sits there and is sort of like championing that Hellfire UAP footage as something like pretty crazy, right? That, you know, pretty crazy. It's kind of like, is it though? Like for someone in your position, I would want to hope that you're seeing things like far more convincing than the Hellfire video, which, you know, is not even convincing because people can't even agree what it is. So, you know, that worries me a little bit, but not so much about her, but just about like where we're at. But, you know, I think what we're going to get into with Jason Sands kind of perhaps explains why.
Who filmed that? How did that get filmed? Was like was that radar on a plane or something?
You know,
or what?
Yeah. It was from MQ9. So
what's that in English?
Here, we'll Google it for the viewers. It's a surveillance.
Okay. A drone?
Well.
Okay.
Yeah.
MQ9.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. That's our drones. AKA the Reaper is its common term.
Okay.
But it was some surveillance footage. Before. But you can pull that up, and a lot of people were like,
find the video of it, Steve.
Yeah, so and like even right before hearing, we had the former director of Arrow, Sean Kilpatrick. The guy's a total clown.
Yeah.
But he was attacking our witnesses. You know, why is he even involved in what Congress is saying or doing when he's like a documented liar? So yeah, we kind of proved him right with the hearing. That was good.
So
proved him right in the fact that, you know, or proved him wrong in the sense that
that's who she's talking about.
American people.
Right. Going back to the Enoch stuff and the religious stuff, I've noticed a lot of, well, not, I mean, there's a lot of people online, and there's also a lot of people that write about like this connection between like biblical stuff and like the modern UFO stuff. And I feel like there is a weird faction of people in the government who are like battling on this UFO narrative.
I don't think it's like a battle. I think there's certain people that want to release classified videos, and there's other people that don't.
Who could that be? Who does it seem like doesn't want videos released? I don't know. I'm scratching my head and I just can't figure it out.
The fact is that these things, if they were a foreign government that had this type of tech, we wouldn't be number one, and we're still number one.
That's an interesting quote, especially with the video that we're about to watch. If another adversary had this technology, then we wouldn't be number one, and we are number one. Okay, let's just keep that one in mind.
But I think there's like very separate. So like we're talking specifically on like tech advancement and national security.
Yeah.
But then there's like a very separate religious perspective. And like I think when you're talking about like biblical text, do many people know that the New King James Bible was actually rewritten? And why was it rewritten? Why were books removed? Why are there different Bibles in the Catholic text? Now, why are there different Bibles or books of the Bible in the Ethiopian Orthodox text? So there's like 88 books in total in the Ethiopian Orthodox text. And
I mean, that is a good question. It seems simple right? But if we trace this stuff back and if we look at the road that it's going down, which is this sort of religious slash interdimensional road, why would there be books removed? Why would Bibles be rewritten? We've spoken on this channel a lot about how, like, the only difference between us, regular people, I use that term lightly. I know where we are right now, regular people, okay? Bear with me. The only difference between us and the let's just call it the upper class is real. I mean, other than, like, let's forget finances, but like, it's knowledge. Knowledge is the power. Knowledge, with the right set of knowledge, you can easily rule. Okay, if you withhold like key truths about like the world that you live in over a group of people, you have an advantage over them. It's like, to use a gaming analogy, it's like versing someone else in Call of Duty, but you know the map off the top of your head because you play it all the time, and they've never even played the map. You're going to shit all over them, okay? Because they don't know where they are. They're going to be walking around corners, looking around, and you're just waiting for them to headshot them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, knowledge is power.
So, like, I think that this gets into like a very religious perspective, but if you interchange, the term alien, I don't call them alien. I say UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. That's what they commonly are termed as. We actually have a really high number of reporting here in Pinellas County.
Really?
Yeah, a very high number of people in the county have actually reported to see these things. And there's different hotspots around the world, but specifically in Alaska, definitely off the coast of Florida, around the Bermuda Triangle. So, it's like not something, when I first started this stuff, they were like, oh, you're going to ruin your political career. And I've actually gotten more questions on this from people, very wealthy people, very powerful people, to your average Joe that pays attention to this because they realize they're like, there might be something there.
There might be something there, and I think it's pretty obvious at this point, right? But interesting to hear that Anna Paulina Luna is saying that high-level people are asking questions about this. But still, with all of this interest, for some reason, things just cannot seem to pass, and disclosure goes nowhere. Why could that be? Well, Jason Sands has a theory, and it's a theory. Look, I'm not going to say I said it first, because even though I kind of did when I say it, it's really just my own speculation based on like intuition, feeling, but also just putting together the pieces and just saying what it seems like is going on, despite how ludicrous it sounds to say. But here we have Jason Sands basically saying the same thing. So let's get into that. But just quickly, JB, thank you very much. Thomas McCotter, thank you guys for the super chats. Synthetic Human Intelligence, definitely a freak with a name like that. Welcome, sir. Thank you for becoming a member. Taris has gifted 5 memberships. Taris, my man, thank you for the daily support, brother. And Oz Flight Simmer, you are also a freak too. Thank you and welcome, guys. Enjoy the members-only content. We actually had our first members-only live stream yesterday, straight after the stream. That was a lot of fun. You can go back and watch the replay of that one if you like. But let's get into the meat of today's show. This is Jason Sands, former whistleblower. He's been on Joe Rogan. He's been on Julian Dory. He's been on all the podcasts. He's got stories about encountering various beings multiple times during his time in the military. He got his clearance stripped, like most whistleblowers have. And he's recently had it reinstated. And he's began popping off with a few tweets. And like I said recently, we've been following this as a little side quest. I try and tap into what's going on, and I could see that there's something going on with Jason Sands. There's a good little side quest happening here. I could feel it. And today, he has just popped off with the bombs. Okay, he's dropping UAP bombshell, shocking bombshell truth. Okay, that's what this is. And shout out to Money Penny, who actually clipped this up. So I pulled this from Money Penny. She took the video of the space on her phone, and I boosted up the audio and just made it a little bit more digestible for us. So shout out to her. And let's check this out. This is about 7.5 minutes. We'll stop off along the way.
Similar to what I've been through, similar to what a lot of whistleblowers have been through. The whole thing is just the ones that are doing this to us are the humans, the people inside this program. And it's sad to say that there are people that would literally do that to other people. But then again, I think back to the people that I worked with in the program, and that they're ignorant, really, to a lot of different things that me and my team got exposed to over the years, mainly because of the stovepiping. But I kind of wanted to at least offer up something, because I know a lot of people have been asking for information and what's this all about. And you guys have touched on it a few times too. And it's also what Dylan and I have talked a lot about too. And I know that...
he's referring to Dylan Borland, by the way, if anyone didn't catch that.
This may not jive with some of you all that don't believe in God, but at the end of this, that's what this is all going to be about. I know that. Dylan knows that. There's a lot of other whistleblowers that know that.
At the end of all of this, this is going to be about God. I know that. Dylan knows that. Other whistleblowers know that.
And I don't mean to piss people off, and I don't mean to make it sound like, you have to do this or do that. Faith is a very personal thing. But if you look at some of the things you guys were touching on, and what Tom and other folks were talking about, we're a race that somehow was enslaved by these beings, altered by these beings.
I mean, look, we're only a minute and a half in, and he's already said some wild shit. Okay, he's saying we are a race that has been enslaved and altered by these beings. Like, if there is ever something that would be suitable to what we've heard is the terrible truth, this is it. This is it. And as wild as it sounds, it kind of makes sense. I mean, the fact that we evolved from monkeys doesn't really make sense, because why are there still monkeys? And that's just one thing, right? This, and I'm not saying it's true. You guys need to all make your own mind up about how you feel about this. But for me, it makes a lot of sense.
A lot of the governments, even throughout the millennia, are being manipulated by these beings. And even today's world, I will tell you that we are being manipulated. And that's the real truth of it all. That's the reality, is that our own governments are being played.
That's obvious. Rich Buddy says, I just joined. Did you discover that we were being taken over by the space Jews? No, I didn't. But perhaps that's what Jason Sands is about to tell us. We'll have to keep listening.
And that's something that I know it's a very somber thing to have to understand.
There's
because
that
it
word.
belittles us a little bit. But at the same time, we're also very special. And that's what there's other NHI out there that also see us as a unique species.
So I'm sorry there's a lot of pausing. There's just a lot of things I want to touch on here because we're going to get into it. He's saying that there are good species out there as well that have taken notice and that have, are trying to sort of intervene and help in their own way.
Not fully developed, but a unique species that deserves a path forward, regardless of all the manipulations of the past. And that's where we're headed. And you'll see that in religious texts, as Tom said. Or as Tom said, just we need to understand that that's our story. This is our story. And so whistleblowers, yes, what we're talking about on Capitol Hill is just a very small portion of the entire story. Yes, it's about the shiny objects we have in our possession and the technologies that are being withheld from us. But honestly, that's all being controlled very tightly by the NHI. I can tell you that because that's exactly what I've been trying to say all along, is that every time they're mentioned in our workspaces, the NHI were not giving us the tech. And I believe even Eric Davis said, we don't know shit about what these things do. We don't know how they work. We may have figured out a few things, but we haven't figured out a lot of things. We haven't figured out the whole grand scheme of it, nor do we even know what the agendas are of all these different races. In other words, even the people inside the legacy program could very well be playing with fire. And I believe, like I've said many times, that my friends' lives are at risk. And they don't even want to recognize that. But that's kind of what's going on. And I just wanted to get that off my chest. because that's something that was, you guys were talking about Dylan and me and everybody else and Matt. We had a dinner where we sat around talking to a very famous journalist and
wonder who that was. Very famous journalist. I'm thinking George Knapp,
filmmaker, and we.
Oh no, filmmaker. I don't know if George Knapp could be classed as a filmmaker. Maybe James Fox. Any other guesses in the chat who that might be? I think it's got to be one of those two.
I sat him down with those guys because those two guys really meant a lot to everything that's happened the past few years.
Yeah, it could be Darcy Weir. Yep.
But I wanted them to see Dylan. I wanted them to see the hurt he's been through. I wanted them to see Matt. I was even brought to tears because I recounted an episode that in much more detail than I ever have public. And these are the kind of things that you're exposed to when you get into this stuff. And I just want everybody to really take heart to what you guys were saying is that, we're trying to tell you something. We're trying to get the truth out.
So this is where my mind kind of goes, right? When I hear things like this, like we're trying to tell you something. This is kind of what I think, and this is like a loose working theory, so bear with me. But like it feels like they're trying to say something without saying it, because if they say it, like Dylan Bolin said the other day, the actual truth is like classified. Like the real truth of what is actually going on is so wild, and it is like, you can dance around it, you can talk about, we might have some craft, we might have figured some of it out, but if you actually say what is actually going on, you can't say that. You can't say that because it's too wild. And it seems like they're trying to say it without saying it. But I guess the question is like, why now? Why is there this desperate push now to get this message out? Does it have something to do with 3i Atlas? Is there, or is that, are both of these things related to 2027 or what Chris Bledsoe has said, the 2026 Easter? I mean, all of these things just feel like they're kind of kicking the can down the road of like keeping people in this like suspended state of, fear or whatever. And I think it was Jason when in the interview that I did with him recently, he kind of said how, these 2027 and all of these sort of like prophetic Armageddon-like events that people talk about, they're almost like a really good, like neutralizing tool in a way to stop people kind of like digging into the truth. Because if people believe that like it's all going to come out soon or it's all going to come to an end soon, that might actually stop people digging into it. I don't think that's the case for everyone, but it's certainly an interesting point. But again, do your own research, guys. I'm platforming this because I think it's very interesting and a lot of it resonates with me, but everyone's entitled to their own opinion here. Absolutely. Gilla says, I don't trust this broad, but would buy her a nice meal at Red Lobster. I'm assuming you're talking about Anna Paulina Luna, not Jason Sands, who is on the screen now. But hey, you might be talking about Jason too. I reckon Jason would enjoy a Red Lobster. So shout out to you and thank you. Michael Frost says, there is definitely something there. Anna, love your work, Josh. Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate you. And Bronny says, time to pick up dog shit. Aliens for the win, Chicago. Bronny, our resident dog shit picker-upperer. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the super chat, and I hope you have a great day. Let's keep going.
But there's so much back noise from people like, Average Chris and all these other jerks that just sit at home and type away whatever their heart feels and their mind makes up. Even though they've got so much more information that has been credible, they themselves can't even add a shred of proof on their own part other than the fact that I thought about this today. And I really would love to see them put to shame. And just that would do well for a lot of the whistleblowers to see that people will talk to these debunkers just like they do me and get ugly with them and just tell them, look, you said these god-awful things. Now prove it, and
that would be so good, right? Like people who speak out like Jason Sands and in a way, rightfully so. Like, I think that's fair. When he tells us that he saw a blue being on an army base, I mean, you know, how do you prove that? It's hard, but it's fair to say, where's the proof? But I think also people who are trying to shit on these people, not even just Jason Sands, but any sort of whistleblower, people who are trying to shit on them, they should kind of cop the same, you know, the same like heat in a way. Like, okay, if you're going to say that this person's full of shit and they're lying, where are your receipts? Because, you know, this person might be potentially speaking out, risking their life to reveal a truth to us. And you're shitting on them. They're speaking out, and even if they are making it up, I think that's not as bad as publicly defaming someone. I don't know. If they're lying, maybe not. It's a tough one. But I think there definitely should be some sort of like equal parts on people and how they're treated. 100%. Guys, slap a like on the video if you're enjoying it so far. By the way, we got a lot of people in here right now. That's amazing. If everyone liked the video, that would be amazing. And you guys would all get 20% off at your local mental health facility when you leave. Show them your stamped card when you leave. Susie says, what I find really odd is that with the many methods available to leak info out, why has the full story never made its way? P.S. Hi, Josh. Hi, Susie. Well, I think if what Jason is saying is true, and that the United States and by and large the West, the Five Eyes countries, are at the very top having their strings pulled by something that is non-human, I think it makes a lot of sense why the full story has never made its way out. Because I think, you know, like in the last few days, I've been saying, is Kash Patel being mind controlled? Certainly looks like it. Certainly looks like it with his eyes like that. Because his eyes didn't used to look like that. If you go and look back at pictures. And when you talk all this big talk about like the Epstein files and we're going to get them out, and then you pop up like this and say, what files? I don't know what you're talking about. Kind of seems like you're being mind controlled. You're either just like blatantly lying and pretending that you never said what you said, and think that everyone is just not going to realize that, or you're being mind controlled. And as crazy as it sounds, like in the landscape that we're in right now, I don't actually think that that's a crazy thing to say. Because we know MK Ultra was a thing. We know Monarch and mind control programs were a thing a long time ago. I'm sure they never stopped. I'm sure they never ever stopped. Why would they? So could something that is more intelligent than us be able to manipulate our minds and our perceptions at the highest levels? And therefore, you have people like this who just for some reason are like blatantly lying and gatekeeping the subject. Are they doing it just because they're annoying and a piece of shit and don't want to see humanity sort of push forward and evolve? Or are they being mind controlled? Now, I know I keep saying this. I'm not trying to say that these people are mind controlled, but I actually think it shouldn't be off the table just based on where we're at right now. I really don't. Gromank, welcome back as a member, sir. You've gifted 2 memberships as well. You are an absolute legend. Thank you very much, my friend. And Bridget, you little freak, welcome back. Thank you very much. Let's keep listening.
It would really make my heart sink, because I think that's what needs to happen to them. They need to be shamed for what they're doing. They need to be shamed. And that would really help on top of everything else. But the end thing is for us to, as whistleblowers, to just really, we're trying to tell you something very important to mankind and to you guys. It's very personal, and it's also very sweeping for all of mankind, what we've seen. And there's a profoundness to that is hard to relate, because it's made up of all these experiences that you wouldn't believe half the stuff that I'm holding back on, because it's so fantastical. It's not even close to anything what we've talked about. There's things going on in the NHI spheres that are completely horrible and completely good as well. And it's all of it, all combined. But at the end, like I said, there's going to be an end to all of this.
That's ominous. There's going to be an end to all of this. So, what could that mean? Like to try and we've been talking about a lot of doom and gloom so far, and that's okay because, it's topical. But to put a positive theory out there, I do think this is a possibility too. And I really would like to hope this. Let's say we are enslaved, okay? Let's say there are elements of the government that are under some kind of control, that are attached to something that is coercing, in effect, the entire Western society in a certain direction that, like most of us, don't actually want to go down. But we seem to be just going that way regardless. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. That's what we're doing. I wonder, and I kind of hope that if this is the truth, that the reason why like the reverse engineering side of things is so secret is because we're trying to figure out how we can fight back. And so it's like when we're trying to keep it secret for national security, but that is also like, we don't want them to know. The people who are messing with us, we're trying to hide it from them, and they, are more intelligent, more powerful. So that's a hard thing to do. Maybe that's why the secrecy is so intense. Maybe that would justify trying to run a psyop on your own people to confuse them, because if it got out that we were knocking down these craft and trying to figure it out so we could use it against them, I don't know. Just a theory. I'm not saying that's the case, but I do try to put humans in a good light and think, how could we be doing this for a good reason? Like, what could be a good reason for this? That's one. But who knows? Achy balls, $50. My God. What did I do to deserve a big super chat like that, my friend? Thank you very much. He says, KJV1611 ripped the script from Rome's grip. Coincided with refinement of English. No way I just said English language. Couldn't have been timed worse. Let me start again because I'm butchering this. KJV 1611 ripped the script from Rome's grip, coincided with refinement of English language, invention of printing press, and the push to advance colonization across the Atlantic, brought literacy to the masses and fear of God into their hearts. Interesting. So 1611, this is the year that what you're talking about has happened. What is KJV? Did you mean KJB? That what you're speaking about sounds like a very interesting time in our timeline that potentially has a lot to do with where we're at today. I see where you're coming from. Very great point, and I appreciate the super chat. Very generous of you, my man. Thank you very much. Rusty's gifted a membership too, and nerd alert. I was actually thinking the other day, I haven't said nerd alert in a long time. Nice to see you here, my friend. He says, hey, Josh and weirdos, sorry I haven't been able to catch any live shows lately, but work unfortunately comes first. Keep up the great work, my man. And he's gifted 5 memberships. What a guy. What a guy. Thank you very much, man. Nice to see you here again, and I appreciate your generosity. Thank you very much. All right, let's keep moving with the rest of this clip. We got a little bit left.
And we need to be prepared for that. And it's really about us. So that's where it gets personal. You have to really get your mindset on that, because we're dabbling in just looking at things for the government. And what do we really want from them is I keep asking this question. We already know they've lied to us many decades. And we see failure after failure, year after year. We really just need to just get an investigation. That's all we really need to ask them for, because we know they've lied.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with what he's saying here. We know they've lied. That's true. But all we need is an investigation. I don't know if I want this guy doing any more investigations. This is the guy who was all about the Epstein files that apparently don't exist. He investigated them so hard they went out of existence. So I don't know if we really want these guys doing investigations, okay? I don't know who should do it, but probably not the guy who can't find the Epstein files when we got told there was a giant stack of them on the desk. So I partly agree, but it's a tough one. And he's saying, the people know that they've been lied to, and we obviously all know that, and we agree with that. And I will say that, this is where we're at, okay? Because, the government, the trust in the government is so low and people just don't like buy anything that they say, that I'm here speaking to 1,500 people saying I think like the leader of the FBI is under mind control, and most people in the chat are like, yeah, he's got a good point. I think he could be. And that's only because we don't trust what they tell us anymore. So we are forced to be like, okay, I guess we have to try and figure it out ourselves. And this is what it comes to. And it kind of seems like we're doing a better investigation than they did with the Epstein files. I'll at least say that. I'm happy to go with that at the very least.
So what else is left? We need to investigate. They know. I agree with Dylan. We've given them everything. Names, places, even types of technologies and things like this. What's holding them back? Well, it might be that we're infiltrated, even at that highest level, by people that are right into the program. And who knows, maybe NHI in disguise. That may be another aspect of the whole thing that's holding it back. And then if we do...
NHI in disguise. Infiltrated at the top level, NHI in disguise. I mean, how many times have we heard they walk among us? Bob Bigelow, Richard Dolan, Robert Dean. The list goes on. They walk among us. They look just like us. How many times have we heard this? They could be in the White House. Probably are. Seems like it. Seems like it. Seems like it. Look, I don't know if Sean Kirkpatrick is a shape-shifting reptilian or not, but seems like it. Definitely seems like it. And again, okay, look, we got 45 seconds on this. I'll let it finish and then I'll keep rambling.
Find out the truth, and we do find out that we're like a slave race or that we've been manipulated. How's it going to make everybody feel?
Somber.
That these aliens have been messing with us for millennia, ever since we were born on this planet. That they've been messing with us. How are we going to feel about that? That's the real truth that's going to really rack you, because that's what's racked me and probably some of the other whistleblowers. So, yeah, it's been a busy day. I just try to wake up each day. Thank God I've got my clearance back. I just don't know who I can even work for now. It's a sad ending to a lot of things for me this year. I'll just leave it there.
So there you go. That's basically the whole clip. Now, like I said to you guys at the start of the show, no way you guys just called him Uncle Fester. That's crazy. That is very funny. Well done, sir. Well done. Look, like I said at the start of the show, I have been basically saying for a long time on this channel, despite how ridiculous it sounded, that it seems like the planet, or at least the West, Five Eyes, is being controlled by something that is non-human. I've been saying that since like the start of the year. And it seems like that is the way things are going. Dylan Borland is saying he thinks he's a victim of mind control. Uncle Fester, Jason Sands, is saying that just basically straight up just saying it, that this is what's going on. This is what we're trying to tell people. This has been going on for a millennia. And, my reasoning has always been, when I've said it, is that when you look at all the chaos in the world that makes no sense, the fact that we can't figure it out, and when I say we can't figure it out, I mean we can't figure out why can't we stop being at war? Why, you would think a conversation, even if it maybe, took a year or two, you would be able to work it out. You'd be able to work it out. But no, we've been basically in some form of war since World War I, essentially. That doesn't seem human. Okay, you can only think humans would want humans to prosper, but that's not happening. In fact, it's like humans seem to be stamping on other humans to hold themselves up higher. There are factions of, let's call them humans, maybe they're not though. If we're listening to these people, maybe they're not, but there are factions of humans on this earth that stay on top of the rest by standing on them. And that doesn't feel like a human trait to me. And that's what I've always said. So I don't know. And you know, honestly, to hear this, to actually hear it come from these people now and going in this direction, it makes me think like, I'm kind of like, okay, I was saying this. Am I like living in my own version of reality? Like, am I going crazy? Like, is just what I'm saying coming true? Or am I just living in like my own fake world? Or I'm just a prophet? Am I a prophet? I mean, you know, people do call me Jostradamus. But what does that mean? Do I have to register? Is there an annual registration fee that I have to pay now as a prophet, as a practicing prophet? I don't know. But it feels weird. It does feel weird. I'm not going to lie. Disclaimer, this is not a cult. Joshua Bartlett, celebrating 2 months as a member, says, let's just remember how much disclosure has occurred since 1 year ago. The Euro UFO flap is pretty wild, close to the Baltic underwater anomaly. It is, and that is actually something we should probably talk about on this channel. Thank you very much, Joshua. Great point, and thank you for the support. Delta Stinger, you little freak. Definitely a big stinger. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. There is no death says, I feel you always interpret the overall concepts 100%. Yes, they can't say certain things because of the butterfly effect it will have at the certain time. Yeah, thank you very much. There is no death. Appreciate you. FMJ says, English Nordic language. I'd love to date a Nordic. Me too, brother. Me too. Thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. EDM Forever, welcome back as a weirdo. And Jan Langford throws in $10 with a little sticker saying, thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure, Jan. All right. I think that kind of wraps up the Jason Sands section. We've got one more. Actually, no, we've got a little bit more to go. What am I talking about? We are still cooking here. All right. I think this old clip, this is an old clip we looked at a long time ago from Dr. Courtney Brown. He runs the Farsight Institute and is basically involved with like remote viewing. Now, how you might feel about him could vary. How I feel about him kind of varies. You know, there are some things that I hear him say that I'm like, that resonates. And then other things I struggle with. But, sometimes there are things that I struggle with. There are things that I used to struggle with that I listen to now. And I'm like, actually, you know what? It makes sense now. So I always try to be aware of that and not dismiss things that don't hit straight away. Because sometimes down the road, when you learn more, those other things start to land a little better. So let's check this out. This is Courtney Brown talking about Prison Planet, good and bad ETs.
Then there was some military conflicts between new ET arrivals that didn't like what the bad ETs were doing. They ran this place as a prison. Long story short, there was a huge galactic war. You might call it a large galactic holocaust that was worse than anything that's happened on Earth. And it's over now, mostly. The two sides are not actively fighting anymore. But at that time, Earth was set up as a prison, and that's what was going on. And then, more recently, about 1,500 years ago, there was actually it started back in the actual pyramid building days, so it was happening early. There were some conflicts between good ETs that were coming by and saying, this is crazy, this is ridiculous, and they disrupted the bad ETs from operating the way they wanted, which is a complete slave society that worked with rock. And the bad ETs started to do work.
Bradley says, any spoon bending tonight? Yes, but it is hands only, unfortunately. So.
Behind the scenes, manipulating things from behind, changing religions so that if the Greek and Roman gods, which had things going really nicely, didn't work anymore, then they modified Christianity to have saints and so on like that. They had a saint for every substitute. For every Greek and Roman god, you had a substitute saint doing something. And it eventually boiled down into religions that started out to be really interesting, but they ended up being, if you don't get down on your knees and beg for forgiveness, you are going to be burning in the fires of hell for all eternity, which is crazy stuff.
And that is the part that I've always struggled with religion. Like, you guys, well, viewers of the channel for a while would have probably seen me become, not like radicalized, but very more like interested in the spiritual side of things through researching UFOs, okay? Grew up with some small church experiences, but nothing, used to think it was ridiculous, basically. Everyone who believed in God was just an idiot. Like, where's the proof, right? But through studying UFOs, I very much don't think that now. And I have had times where I've felt drawn to like go to a church, or and that's more out of like a gratitude thing, honestly, for like how much this YouTube channel has like changed my life. I felt like I was like, man, I need to thank someone. I need to just go and thank God or something. But I've started to try and just be more kinder to myself and thank myself in a way, because at the end of the day, I'm the one who, did it. But with that, I've also struggled with the things that Courtney Brown is saying. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that a creator would be all loving, but burn you in hell. Yeah, I love you, but respect me or burn in hell. It just kind of doesn't really make sense, right? Worship me or I'll kill you. Not quite the loving creator I pictured. So, you know what I mean? It's those kind of things, like something feels off about it. But I think there is truths in there. I think there are good values, good morals, good stories, good teachings. But there is something about like, mainstream church on a whole that just feels off. It just feels weird, and I can't put my finger on what it is.
But that they wanted this control mechanism over humanity. And then, there's been pressure from the good ETs who have been totally locked out of the power structure, the elite power structure. And so the good ETs developed a different approach. They require a free will choice, but you weren't getting that from the elite who actually signed agreements with the bad ETs. The good ETs had developed a new strategy, which is if we can't get the free will decision from the elite.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but just what he said there kind of corroborates what Jason Sands said. He's saying the government has made agreements with the bad ETs. And I've said this before, I hate the term good, bad ETs. It just trivializes the whole thing. But he's saying the government has made agreements with bad ETs, and that good ETs kind of like want to intervene and they want to help, but they're very like free will orientated. Like they're not going to force anyone. We have to do it ourselves. So they've adapted a new way of doing that, which he's about to say. But this is essentially exactly what Jason Sands had said.
Let's deal with the masses. So what they have been doing over a great many years is, I'll give you some examples. They've been dropping ideas in the middle of night when the script writers and producers and directors are sleeping in Hollywood. And when they wake up, they say, "Oh, I've got this great idea for a new movie," and now the good ETs are free will fanatics, so they're not going to force anybody to do it. But a good idea is a good idea, and the screenwriters think it's their idea, and that's where you got Star Wars. That's where you got Star Trek. That's where you got the Matrix movies. All the stuff coming out, a lot of the Ghost in the Shells, a lot of the high-tech, interesting sci-fi stuff that you see coming out of Hollywood and, some Japanimation and things like that came from the good ETs. So what they were doing is they were changing the ideas in the society, making the society ready for this open contact. If it wasn't for that, we'd be stuck way back in the dark ages. So all these ideas, they were being brought to the surface without the agreement with the U.S. government and without the agreement of the bad ETs. It was a revolution slowly percolating from below.
All right, let's run this back for a second. I want to talk about seeding ideas. First of all, we did an episode the other day where we looked at a lot of Dana Pasolka's work, and she, I think in one of those clips, she was talking about, muses and inspiration, like where do ideas come from? And, she's talking about that, and this, again, it's funny that it goes back to ancient Greek, and we hear a lot about the Greek gods. Like this, there are a lot of things that overlap here, but muses, where does creative inspiration come from? And that a lot of the people who are high in their fields of, say, like, computer science, in the example that she gives with Jacques Vallée, but also like artists, musicians, screenwriters, like people who have this like natural ability for creativity seem to be kind of like tapped into something, like some kind of source that is delivering this inspiration. Even, I'm pretty sure Michael Jackson is on camera somewhere, I don't have the clip, saying, like, I can't take credit for, I think it's Billie Jean. He's like, that song just, it came to me from somewhere else. This isn't new. Like, this sort of stuff isn't new, right? But he specifically, like, okay, let's just go back to what he says here.
And producers and directors are sleeping in Hollywood. And when they wake up, they say, "Oh, I've got this great idea for a new movie," and now the good ETs are free will fanatics, so they're not going to force anybody to do it. But a good idea is a good idea, and the screenwriters think it's their idea, and that's where you got Star Wars. That's where you got Star Trek. That's where.
Okay, let's pause it there. First of all, going back to me being a prophet. I'm joking, by the way. I don't want anyone to think I'm actually being serious. It's a joke, okay? It's a joke, but it's funny. Because it was probably like 2 months ago how I was on here saying Star Wars is a documentary, and the Force is essentially like projecting consciousness, or like something along the lines of telekinesis, remote viewing. Like, there is this field around us that we can all tap into, and that is displayed in the movie Star Wars, disguised as the Force. I made a big song and dance about this. I think we looked at someone else who kind of basically said the same thing, but I thought that part was super interesting. He also says Star Trek, and, it's the Lockheed Skunkworks ex-CEO, Ben Rich, who specifically says Star Trek. He says, anything you can imagine that you see in Star Wars or Star Trek, we already know how to do. We can do it, but it would take an act of God to get these things out to ever help humanity. So, like, what does that mean? Why would it take an act of God to ever get them out? He said that in like 1993, by the way. So, the fact that he said that in itself is just very interesting. But the fact that, it would take an act of God to get them out, like, why? Why would he say that? That's very different to like, oh, this technology is so far ahead and unstable that it's definitely not coming out for another 50 years. You know what I mean? It's not like they just had some crazy tech they weren't ready to release. He's saying it would take an act of God. Like, I don't know. To me, that's like, that could fit with the idea of him knowing that he doesn't, yes, slaves detach. He doesn't have the authority to get that technology out. It's not Lockheed's decision on what happens with that technology. Kind of sounds like you're working with a non-human intelligence, or a non-human intelligence is your boss. I'm just connecting the dots here. But anyway, there's more. Just wait.
You got the Matrix movies.
Okay, the Matrix. Okay, so we're talking about muses, or good ETs, as Courtney likes to put it, seeding ideas into people's minds to start putting, these concepts in our head of intergalactic civilizations and all these kind of things, right? The Matrix came out in 1999. This famous thing from the movie, Neo's passport, which expires on September 11th, 2001. Now, could be coincidence number 11,107, or could be something kind of weird, right? Because that's a pretty specific date you got there. Weird that Courtney Brown specifically mentioned this movie, and this movie has a crazy reference to a really significant date in the future that I've always said changed the world, and we've never ever changed back. Kind of like how COVID changed the world, and it's not COVID anymore, but things aren't really the same as before COVID. 9/11 was the same kind of marker in our timeline. The world just wasn't the same after terrorism became a big thing to be worried about, right? So there's that interesting little tie in there. And we're not done yet. Let's keep going. I foolishly turned the clip off, but we'll find it.
Fanatics, so they're not going to Star Wars. That's where you got Star Trek. That's where you got the Matrix movies. All the stuff coming out, a lot of the Ghosts in the Shells, a lot of the high-tech, interesting sci-fi stuff that you see coming out of Hollywood and, you know, some Japanimation and things like that.
Okay, Japanese animation. Here's another one. We watched this movie recently on movie night. This is Akira. This movie is about over 30 years old, I believe. This is a Japanese anime. And what you can see here in this movie, which came out, I think, late 80s. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's around late 80s. This is them predicting the Tokyo Olympics in 2020. Now, you know, that's not as impressive. It's still kind of cool, though. But what's really interesting is in this movie, essentially the city becomes like super dystopian and gets like crazy and out of hand. I'm not going to spoil it. And the people start pushing for the Olympics to be cancelled. And there's like this graffiti over the sign that says like, cancel it, cancel it. And in real life, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics got cancelled because we went into a dystopian pandemic where people were getting locked in their homes. Kind of wild, right? And hey, maybe it's just another coincidence. But like, and I am being serious when I say it could be a coincidence, because it could. But at what point do we start saying like, okay, that's a lot of coincidences? Like some of them might be, but all of them can't be. Some of them definitely probably are coincidences. I'm not denying that. But all of them? I mean, my coincidence counter, we're in the 11,000s at the moment. So, you know, I don't think they can all be a coincidence. It's just too much. EDM Forever, welcome back. Oh, I think we did that one, but welcome back again, sir. And Achy Balls with $10 says, never let crisis go to waste. Global unrest, wars fueling uncertainty, perfect time to amplify fear and cast the nets. You've really been chiming in with some very cryptic knowledge bombs lately, Achy Balls, and I'm a fan of it. I like it. Sometimes it takes me a little while to decode what you're saying, but there's always a lot of value in it. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much. Now we have one more clip to go. We're going back to Anna Paulina Luna now. Basically, this is a shorter clip. This is where Danny Jones tried his best to get an answer out of Anna Paulina Luna about what she thinks UFOs are. This is what she said.
Out of all the people you've talked to and like all the skiffs you've been in and all these whistleblowers that you've interacted with, if you were just to take, I know you don't like to speculate, but if you were to bet on like what this stuff could be coming from, like what do you think? Do you think intergalactic space aliens? Do you think it's time traveling humans, breakaway human civilization?
I call it non-human intelligence.
Angels and demons, like Tucker Carlson thinks it is.
So Grush does a good way of outlining this in a way that's very factual, and he calls it NHI. I think an older term for that would be what Tucker Carlson probably calls as angels and demons. So
like,
but it's interesting.
From where though? But
that's the thing. It's we don't know. Like it's not like I can be like, beam me up, Scotty, and answer the questions. But
I know you don't know. But I'm just saying, like, what would your, if you were in Vegas?
I don't know that answer. But what I can tell.
He's trying so hard, and like I'm laughing because I feel like I've been in this position trying to interview people, and it is hard. Like I understand when someone comes on your channel, they don't know your audience. You know, and obviously on this channel, we like to speculate. It's an open forum. Throw out some theories, throw out an idea. It's, you know, you don't have to, it's not too serious. But, you know, you just want someone to be like, you know, come on, speculate with me, shoot the shit. What do you think? But she's, you know, I guess understandably with her position, probably makes sense, but she's not giving an inch.
Tell you is it's been interesting because, you know, we go back to some of these very old texts that talk about this that were somehow removed from the Bible, which is also a weird conversation. But it's pretty straightforward in what those things are. So I don't like to tell people what to believe. What I can do is present you with the facts and tell you to read a book. You should probably read the book and then draw your own conclusions.
Mm-hmm. I had this NASA dude on here, Kevin Knuth. Mm-hmm. You know him? Mm-hmm. So he worked for NASA for a while, and he was a physicist for NASA. And he believes that these things, whatever they are in the oceans exclusively because all different planets throughout the solar system have crazy different atmospheres, right? Like they have different gravity, they have different levels of gas and oxygen and whatever it is in their atmosphere. They're highly vulnerable to
Slim, I had the exact same first thoughts. When he said that, I was like, isn't that the guy in like the Eminem skits? No. Similar, but no.
Like meteor impacts or comet impacts, volcanoes, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, atmospheres can be gas, all different kinds of, the temperature can vary like thousands of degrees in the atmosphere. But what he was explaining was on all the different planets, all the different moons in our solar system, the water temperature, water can only exist between 33 degrees and like 200 degrees.
It's a controlled state.
So it's like very, very controlled environment. So if you were another species and you were hopping from planet to planet, you would look for the planets with the water. And we're like, we are a water world. If you can look at our planet, look at the Pacific Ocean, and there's no land. It's just all ocean. So like that would make, and that kind of like blew my mind.
That does always spin me out. And I think I've said this on the channel before. Like, just go on Google Earth and just rotate it to the point where you're looking at the Pacific Ocean. You can't see any land. We're all on one side of the Earth. Literally, we're all just over here. Who knows what the hell is over here? Because literally, with where we're at right now, to the point where we're questioning if, is the government actually mind controlled? Kind of seems like it could be. I'm also thinking like, dude, I don't even know if I believe the maps. I don't believe what's on the news. I don't believe the maps. I don't even believe the guy at the checkout when he tells me how much my shopping is. I'm double checking it myself. That's where I'm at.
And the way he explained that to me, he's like, you would just hop from water world to water world to water world because you have this perfect environment.
I would say though, you wouldn't want to hop. You would do time travel if you could,
yeah,
or
time
interdimensional
travel.
something.
Weird little thing for her to slip in, right? Especially with the whole time travel aspect that's kind of been being spoken about lately. We talked a lot about it recently regarding like the Roswell crash. Giorgiani talks a lot about time travel as well. It's a really interesting theory and interesting to hear Anna Paulina Luna slip it in there. Not like that. But across this whole interview, she has been just dropping like little bits. Like she's not even replying. She's talking over Danny. And those little comments I find interesting.
Look, I don't have all the answers, but what I will say is that just based on the stuff that we've seen, there's definitely something there. I don't believe when people try to gaslight the situation because I've just seen too much publicly out there available evidence to include things that I have seen that aren't publicly available that I do believe tell a different story. And I think though that with social media, the ability for people to do their own research, I think that it's really kind of created this environment where people have access to more information than any other time in US history. Mm-hmm. And so I'm simply here to present the facts. And I think that this is one of those questions. I think when you don't talk about these things or you try to prevent the conversation from happening, that's where you get the weird conspiracy theories, right?
Right, Anna. That's when you get these weird conspiracy theories like our government is mind controlled, like everybody's lying to us, and Atlantis is real, so are the Greek gods, and the government is run by a non-human intelligence. That's where we're at. Yep. Waterworld is underrated. That's some serious hardcore world building that can be done for $300 million less now. Waterworld is a very interesting movie. Maybe we should watch Waterworld in our next movie night. It's been a while since we've done a movie night. But guys, if you're interested in a movie night, make sure you come and join the Discord. It's linked below. You can just join the conversation, come hang out. We're active in there pretty much all day, every day. The members of the channel get their own section, and it is a great place to hang out and meet like-minded freaks like yourself. And we've got a few other channels down below as well. We've got a clips channel, another channel with some different sort of content coming soon. Go and subscribe to them. I would appreciate that a lot. Let's go and give our girl one closing little treat. Kathleen chucked in $5 and says Suki snack time. And Maggie M gifted a membership. Maggie, thank you so much. Very generous of you guys. Suki. Oh, she was lagging. You could see that little brain lag she had. We normally let sleeping dogs lie, but if she responds on one, she gets the snack. Kind of looks a little glitchy on my end, but hopefully it looks okay for you guys. Please, if you enjoyed today's stream, slap a like on the video because, in my opinion, it's been a really good one. I really enjoyed today. We had lots of people in here. And on your way out, slap a like and you'll get 20% off at your local mental health facility. And if our government's being mind controlled and we are ran by aliens, you're probably going to need it. Guys, in saying all of that, make sure you're getting outside every day. Touch some grass. Let's get some love hearts in the chat. Put out some good energy, some good vibes. And look after each other. Be kind. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a great night. Have a great day. Take care.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to